Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let us have a comprehensive idea about matters, then the Indriyas, including the mind. Matters are comprising of 5 elements which we saw: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, water, and the earth. Look at these attributes. Akasha has only one guna. It produces echo. Vayu, because it evolves out of Akasha, takes the property of Akasha, which is sound or echo, and along with that, it has its own guna, touch. From Vayu comes Agni or fire. It therefore inherits the first 2 properties of sound and touch, and also exhibits its own guna of form. From fire comes water, which carries the attributes of the earlier 3, namely sound, touch, form, and taste. And finally comes the earth, carrying all the 5 properties: sound, touch, Agni for form, then taste, and finally smell. So all these properties are found finally on earth. Now we come to the sensory organs. Sound is perceived by the ear. Skin perceives touch. Eyes perceive forms. Tongue perceives taste. And finally, nose perceives smell. Ordinarily, all the sensory organs are designed in such a way that they look outward. When we say sensory organ, please do not mistake it to the external ear or external eye, which is the gross body. We are talking which is part of the subtle body. Now it tends normally to look outwards, looking at the material world to receive or perceive. But these 5 sensory organs also has internal properties. Close your ears, you will still hear a sound. Then when you do breathtaking, you will feel the sense of the breath or the prana. One can see the fire in the stomach. When water and food is taken, gulped, we will find an internal touch. And when eyes are closed, we have a sense of internal darkness. And when both taste and smell are perceived while vomiting and belching. So these are internal attributes of the 5 sensory organs. Now let's come to the 5 Karmindrias or organs of action: hands, legs, mouth, excretory organ, and the sexual organ, which performs the following 5 functions: taking by the hand, going or walking through the legs, speech through the mouth, then excretion, and finally the sexual organ. These 5 Jnanendriyas, which are sensory organs, and the 5 organs of action called the Karmindrias, are controlled by the mind. See, mind is completely subtle. It doesn't manifest in any form in the gross body. So mind has no touch or contact with the universe directly. It has its contacts only through these 10 indriyas. And Vedanta says, interestingly, this is the fact. These sensory organs which look outwards perceive the material universe and the experience. What is universe to us? To each one of us. What we perceive through the five sensory organs, what we see, what we hear, what we taste. So this, the touch we get, this together constitutes universe to a jiva. So the purpose of a sensory organ is always to draw perceptions or reactions from the universe and give it to the mind. And the mind keeps processing it and issues the commands, and the commands get executed by the organs of action. So organs of actions implement the commands or the desires of the mind, and these desires or commands emanate of the mind due to the perceptions made by the sensory organs which look outwards towards the universe. This is how the sensory organs, mind, and the organs of actions get connected. Then what is mind made up of? Mind is essentially made up of the three gunas. Mind is nothing but a composite package of the three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And each guna carries with it innate, unique attributes. The sattva guna reflects dispassion, forbearance, and generosity. The rajoguna represents desire, anger, greed, and effort. And the tamoguna reflects laziness, delusion, lassitude, and similar such traits. Now, it's also said, punya accretes to a jiva through the sattva guna, and papa accretes to him or her through the rajoguna. Tamoguna is neither punya nor papa, but it is essentially a wasteful segment in our life. In a sense, it neither produces any good or bad, and one who lives in tamoguna is actually leading a life in vain. So, gunas reflect attributes, and attributes, when they act, result in punya or papa. But remember, including mind, the sensory organs, and the organs of action, all of them are completely inert. There is a driver to them, whom we start calling it as I. Let's see tomorrow. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. As we are generally into definitions, we saw yesterday about the indriyas, about the various matter, about mind, about gunas. Let's also understand what Brahman is. Basic definition. So, question arose, how do you define Brahman? And they use three expressions of a nice choice. They say, if you want to know Brahman, know it as one, only one, and without a second. See, they could have stopped with saying, no, it's only one, or just one. Why do they say one, only one, and without a second? Vedantis explain it. We say it is it is one because it is without parts. We say only one because there is no similarity to it. And we say without a second to rule out the fact that there is nothing dissimilar to it. So, Brahman is one without parts, without a similarity, and without a dissimilarity. Let's relate it to a live example. Let's take, say, trees. If you consider a tree, the leaves, the branches, the flowers, and the fruits become parts. Then there is a similarity between a mango tree and a tamarind tree in terms of their family as tree. And trees are dissimilar when compared to stones or mountains or sand. So we see all the three in our real world. And therefore, they proceed to make this affirmative statement that Brahman is not one like a tree having branches, leaves, and fruits. Or it has, like similar trees, something similar to Brahman. Or like trees in contrast to rivers, mountains, sand, there is something which we can show Brahman is in contrast to this. It does not figure in any of these three. So let's rule it out. They ask these questions. You say it's one. How do you say? See, we see day in and day out names and forms. I am different from you. You are different from cat. Cat is different from mountain. Mountain is different from water. So we see so many things. So how do you say it's one? For which the Vedanti answers. Look here. Names and forms appear on Brahman. They are not parts of Brahman. They don't go to make Brahman, because Vedanta teaches you the philosophy and science that all these names and forms are illusions and imaginary. Like you see a rope in a semi-darkness, you see a snake over it. You assume a snake over the rope. Can you therefore say snake is a part of that rope? It's not. It's only your assumption. So a name and a form appears at a later point of time. Existence, Sat Chit Ananda, is without name and form. And therefore it is not having any parts. Alright. Now show, is there anything similar to Brahman? Now, they said, true, we agree that it's without parts. But Akasha is also without parts. So can we say Brahman and Akasha are similar? We will deal with this aspect in the next talk. But right now, let's proceed on the basis, because there is a huge differences between Akasha and Brahman. Akasha is no way a match to Brahman. We'll see that tomorrow. But before that, Akasha, you can't say Akasha is a part of Brahman. That's basically wrong. Nor can you say Akasha is similar to Brahman, because it doesn't have the properties of Brahman. It exists. Its very evolution depends on Brahman. We'll see that tomorrow. So there is nothing similar. But the objection is, raise a question. All right, it may be one, it may be only one, but don't say it is without a second. You are showing Brahman as Satchitananda. We have a doubt because we don't feel it, we don't see it, we don't perceive it, and therefore, why don't we say there is nothing called Brahman, it is only void. World or creation emerges out of complete voidness. Don't try to preach us it is Brahman. It is void. And therefore, it is dissimilar. There is something which is void. And therefore, don't subscribe to the view Brahman exists. Then the Vedanti puts the following questions. When you want to say something is similar or dissimilar, you will have to necessarily narrate A. What is its quality? B. What is its nature? Show me that. See, take for example sun. Sun is not in contact with darkness, nor it is in the nature of darkness. Therefore, existence and void are mutually contradictory. One cannot coexist with the other. When there is darkness, there is no sun. When there is sun, there is no darkness. But you can't say it has the attributes of darkness in it, or it is in the nature of darkness. That's wrong. So, either it should be existence or it should be void. Now, if you say it is void, explain it, describe it. So, it has no nature. You are not able to subscribe a nature to it, a quality to it, whereas we say existence, consciousness, and anandam is something which we can identify and convey to you its presence in the following with the following attributes. You can't even say they are attributes having these qualities for the purpose of understanding. It's something beyond that. But we'll have to reduce it for an understanding purposes, and therefore we say so. And then the next question is asked to the objectionist. We all say the subtle body, the causal body, and the gross body are the layers. All this is a superimposition. Can there be a superimposition on voidity? Please prove us. Whereas there can be a superimposition on, because unless there is a rope lying in a semi-darkness, somebody cannot presume it to be a snake. You need that for a reflection, for an illusion, for a mistaken identity, whatever you may call it. You can't say in a complete dark, pitch dark or a semi-dark road, you will suddenly assume a snake without any basic material attached to it. And therefore, superimpositions are possible only when there is a basic substratum. Show us what is the substratum for voidity. If you show one substratum, then that is not void. And therefore, this is how they could establish Brahman is one, only one, and without a second. Let's see tomorrow about Brahman and Akasha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yesterday we promised to discuss about Brahman and Akasha, because all of us will agree that like Brahman, Akasha is also without parts. And the question they bring it up for consideration is, how can something exist without space? We agree that Vayu or fire or water or earth, all this can be brought into minutest atoms. But that's not the case with Akasha. And existence has to sustain itself somewhere, and you therefore need space. And how do you say it is standalone? Brahman is standalone. This is the question raised. And Vedanta provides the following answers to those objections. 1. We are so used in our mind associating with space. Because we see objects all around, and we therefore feel objects have to be accommodated in the right places, and there must be space, intermittent space between them. And space, by its very nature, is limitless, and therefore the assumption that space is a parallel to Brahman, and therefore the standard Brahman is standalone, need not be right. You're so used. So the first counter Vedanti gives is, if you start to contemplate, you will be in a position to travel an area where existence will be in a position to conquer space. At the moment, it is hypothetical, but this is possible. But the objectionists will say, okay, this is theory. At the moment, it is theoretical. So give us some other answers. And therefore, the Vedantin proceeds to give other answers also. This principal answer is good enough, but because they find it theoretical, he proceeds to give further answers. Even though space is limitless, space is also colorless. How do you know that there is space? Unless there is light or darkness. That's the first question asked. So, without light or darkness, one cannot assimilate or perceive space. And whereas existence is not dependent on darkness or light. Therefore, Akasha is not equivalent or superior to existence. Number one. The objection is therefore raise a question, what are you talking? You say existence is standalone, one only, and then not without a second. Then how can names and forms emerge out of existence? It's perplexing. We see millions and millions of forms. How can it emerge out of existence which is standalone? The Vedantin answers precisely. Brahman also has potency. So it is the potency which emerges out as Maya or Avidya. What is this potency? What is Maya? We will discuss it tomorrow. We may need 2 sessions for that. But right now, let us understand the answer given to the objectionist. So, existence has a potency, and that potency translates itself into Maya, emerges as Maya and Avidya, and through distortion and through deceptive appearances, through illusions, it can produce millions and millions of forms and names. What's the problem? That does not in any way deter the authentic inference that existence is far superior than Akasha and unassailable one. They don't leave it there. They proceed further to say, you should still show us some difference. We are not convinced even now. Then the Vedantin proceeds to say, okay, space has 2 attributes. First, it creates something called a space, and as a quality produces echo or sound. Existence need not have that. You don't find echo or sound in existence, whereas you need to find this in space. This is 1. 2, remember the previous discussions. When evolution happens, see, Akasha is the first evolute out of existence. and therefore cannot be at par or superior to existence. It's the second answer they give. And how do they substantiate it? From Akasha is born Vayu. From Vayu we get fire. From fire, water. And from water we get earth. And one inherits the other qualities. For example, Vayu has two properties, echo and touch. Fire has three properties, echo, touch and form. Water has four properties, echo, touch, form and taste. And earth has all the five properties, echo, for touch, form, taste and smell. Even though the qualities are inherited by the subsequent evolutes, remember, you don't find Akasha in Vayu. You don't find Vayu in fire. You don't find fire in water. And you don't find water on earth. They stand separate and distinct. Whereas what is sustaining all the five is Brahman, Satchitananda, the underlying substratum. Underlying substratum, through the power of Maya, is producing one evolute after the other, including Akasha, which is the first evolute. And then they finally say, go back to the first. All this is only to give you a comparative analysis for you to be convinced that Akasha is no comparison to Brahman. Because by concentration, by entering into Samadhi, one can realize Akasha also to be part of illusion. Because Akasha emerges out of Maya. And therefore, existence, consciousness, and Anandam, which is Brahman, is one, only one, and without a second. Let's see about Maya tomorrow.